Yo everybody, what's going on? This is Keegan from Kman Reviews. If you enjoyed this review, make sure you hit that like and the subscribe button. And if you have any opinions at all that you would like to share, make sure to leave them down in the comment section. The band CAMINO, self-titled. The band CAMINO is an American rock band that I've actually covered on this channel before. I was given the request to look at their 2019 EP Try Hard, which there will be a link in the corner for you to check that out if you're curious. Anyway, I'm back here to give them some more light, and this time covering their debut studio album, which is self-titled. And let's just jump right in. What are my thoughts on this album? Let's find out as I review it track by track. We will start with the singles, with there being 6 of them. The first one being Roses, which instantly has this kind of buoyancy to it. The combination of the keys and the bass seemed to light a new pop direction for the band, which wasn't too present on Try Hard. But then the chorus all but shuts that down with a prominent gritty riff and the occasional sharp electronic slice and hearty percussion that continues for the majority of the song, along with a cute little key breakdown as well. Jeff's vocals on the track are pretty good. I think he's got a decent knack for the poppier side of rock, displayed here as he sings about how recently depression is being glorified, just reminding the listener to not fall into such trends and to stop and smell the roses. I really like the song. The second single, One Last Cigarette, has a real anthemic exuberance to it, especially on these verses with these claps, percussion, whistling, and a sticky riff. The chorus pushes all that to banger quality with a much more intense, hard rock groove in comparison to the more up-tempo, chantable verses. Plus, there's a pretty fiery guitar solo as well, which also gets a plus out of my book. Spencer takes vocals on this track, and unlike Jeffrey, I think he works much better for these pop rock tunes. It's a pretty boilerplate vocal tone, but frankly, if it works, it works. Lyrically, it's actually kind of funny. Spencer said that this song is about, and I quote, getting drunk and losing my keys. Simple enough, and a good song to boot. The third single, Sorry Mom, really took me by surprise when I first heard it, as it opens up with this very simple, kind of cheesy, plucky guitar riff that I hear a lot of indie singer-songwriters use. But after a more constructive look, this song is actually beautiful. Sure, instrumentally, it is safe, the aforementioned guitar, the acoustic percussion, and that does kind of stay the same for the rest of the song, but Jeffrey's vocals are gorgeous and heartfelt. You can really tell it came from a place of personal grief as he sings about these lyrics apologizing to his mother for being a mess-up, a bad brother, for swearing, drinking, and just a lot of negative attributes one wouldn't usually approve of. Very nice track. Love this one. The fourth single, Know It All, opens up as a pretty minimal pop rock track. There's some low, bubbly synths and a simple percussion before blossoming on the chorus with a more aggressive drum pattern, crushing riff, and Jeffrey going into a full yell, which is very satisfying and doesn't stretch into that awkward range that some singers tend to get into. Aside from that, plus another pretty solid guitar solo, which doesn't match up at all to One Last Cigarette, the song's kind of standard. It doesn't really soar to the high heights of the other tracks, and it just kind of sounds like one of the basic pop rock tracks that graces the radio every now and then. Not bad at all, but there is better here. The fifth single, I Think I Like You, is a very poppy track on opening moments. The percussion feels very retro, it has that little signature slap to it, there's a buzzing synth melody, and Spencer really sounds like Martin Johnson from The Night Game on this one. That poppiness doesn't go away either. The chorus is a full-blown 80s jam, with Spencer ascending to a falsetto as that bass line just kind of buries the way into the mind. The vocal melody is just so catchy on this one too. It is such an earworm, as these lyrics should be pretty self-explanatory with the title, just about liking this person a little bit more than they should. God, this is such a bop. Great track. And the sixth and final single, Who Do You Think You Are, is another track that starts off just like a pop song, but this one even more so. The repetitive plunky synth, the light snaps, it's very breezy and simple. And out of all the singles though, this one is probably my least favorite. Not too crazy about the burst of the chorus with the sudden drums, the slippery staccato synths, and Jeffrey doesn't really have as much life on this one vocally. He's a little bit monotone, and while I know I said he has the voice for the more poppy side, I think if this track had a little bit more edge, less pop sheen, I think it could have been great. But to me, this one's just kind of caught in the middle. It's gloomy, yet mid-tempo, and it just feels like a bit of a slog. Now for the rest of the tracks. Opener Everybody Dies is a pretty depressing opener, which if it weren't for that title, I don't think you'd actually be able to discern that. The song has an upbeat vibe to it, the verses have a humming synthetic ambience, the bass is a bit more of a bounce, and there's a surprisingly hopeful energy coming out of Jeff's vocals. The chorus is a downright jam, Spencer's vocals are solid, and the percussion has a good slap to it. Plus, factoring in some pop cliches, it kind of reminds me of Scott Helman's Everything Sucks with a rock garnish. Lyrically, it's pretty apathetic, just being sick of living how society and peers may want you to, coming to this nihilistic conclusion of how life is meaningless, so live your life because we're all just going to die at some point, make the most of it while you can. Sure, it's bleak, but it's also a bop. Underneath My Skin is a pretty standard pop rock track. There's not too much that really stands out on this one. The verses feature light, echoey clunks of the drum and a staccato riff that builds into a more discernible melody before the chorus brings it all together. It features a bit more of a booming energy, but that's really all about it. I like Spencer's vocals here, but he does little to push the track to higher heights. In fact, I swear I've heard several other bands do this exact song before. Lyrically, it's just about how this partner who's desperately trying to get this relationship ignited again, but to no avail. There's nothing bad about the song, but there's nothing really remarkable about it at all, and to be honest, that kind of makes it my least favorite on the album. Just a Phase is another track that I'm kind of mixed on, but to a bit of a lesser extent. The only real gripe I have with this song is this very bizarre and clunky drum pattern, mainly on the verses. That may seem a little bit picky, but it's extremely noticeable and difficult to really immerse myself into the beat when you just keep losing it. Especially when, at its core, it's just a good pop rock song at best. The pre-chorus and chorus bring this back to equilibrium, adding in a little bit more layer to the mix, a second drum pattern, blasting guitars, and Spencer's vocals that are just barely on the verge of being blended into the mix as he sings about not really being certain about your future goals and aspirations, with everyone just telling you that, oh, it's a phase, you'll eventually find yourself, which is a subject I personally can relate to a lot, so that just wins some brownie points for me. It's a decent song, I think I'll keep it around. Song About You was an unexpected highlight on this album. I really like this track. It starts off pretty tame with the flat acoustic guitar strumming and Jeff in an appropriately exhausted vocal tone, as the verse builds up with a steady thumping percussion, which all leads to a perfect climax that is the chorus. It doesn't necessarily boom, but it feels understated. I love how Jeff's vocals amp up ever so slightly just to fit the mix. The vocal melody is nice and sticky, and I love the pop leaning of the post-chorus combined with a scratchy synth accompaniment. It's a pretty brief listen as well, being the shortest track on the record, a little over 2.5 minutes, but the track really gets in, gets out, and leaves enough of an impact to keep you satisfied. Love this one. Damage almost kind of reminds me of a typical electronic song from the opening moments here. The taps of the synth, the flat acoustic guitar melody present in like every single EDM song from 2018, and the rattling cymbal and sandy snare clicks to kind of tie it all together in a solid pop package. And that's kind of what I think the track is in general. It's just solid. The chorus has a similar understated climax that Song About You had. However, I much prefer that one because the melody is just more infectious and the vocals are a bit more engaging. This one feels a little bit more dreary, which is also similar to Who Do You Think You Are, in that it has a bit more of a mid to upbeat rhythm, but it just kind of happens. Not really a memorable moment here is all. Lookup has a surprisingly tropical vibe to it. The opening mix is kind of muffled, but you can automatically tell that from the bubbly bass, the smacking of the snare, then the gentle riff-like wind, that you can instantly pick up this perky, summery vibe out of it, and when the real mix reveals itself, it sure doesn't disappoint. In fact, out of every track on this album, the rock vibe is easily the weakest on here. The most notable it gets is on the chorus where the percussion gains a bit more dimensionality. But aside from that, though, a lot of sunny synths, catchy melodies, feel-good vibes, and this positive message about disconnecting from the virtual world every now and then. There's so much more to life than a small pocket-sized screen. I just love this song. Really good stuff. Help Me Get Over You is a track that I was really excited for when I first heard those opening notes. It's a piano ballad, very tender and lush keys, along with Jeff being behind the mic, which truly felt like a match made in heaven. He definitely has the more melancholic tone out of the two vocalists. And my god, this is one of the most gorgeous songs on the album. I adore the soaring grandiosity of the chorus as Jeff hollers these painful lyrics about this partner who basically treated him like dirt under their shoe, sleeping with his best friend, outright saying that they don't like this band, and that they wish they met someone different, asking a whimpered request to help him get over them. Beautiful track, an album highlight for sure. And finally, the closer, Get It Your Way. As a closer, I feel leaves a little bit to be desired. That's not me saying it's a bad song at all, but it just feels weird as a closing track because the song doesn't really offer any kind of foregone conclusion to the record. Help Me Get Over You could have been a fantastic closer. A depressing one, sure, but I think it could have been a sonically smarter choice than this. I do like how sprawling the whole mix feels, very open, which is especially true on the chorus, presenting one of the stronger rock feelings on the album with the echoey scratches of the riff and much more impactful percussion. Not bad, but not really the most satisfying closer in the world. overall, this debut band CAMINO album certainly had its moments. I'm not arguing that at all. A lot of which came in the predominantly poppier cuts for this album. A lot of great, pleasant, sticky melodies, fun, bubbly beats, and there isn't really a truly bad vocal performance on this album. The biggest flaw that prevents me from truly loving this album, though, is a combination of homogeneity and length. If this was cut to maybe 10 tracks, get rid of the more forgettable cuts, keep the pop experimentation, this could have been a very fun album. But in the end, I kind of have to say that it was bogged by a little bit of filler. I'm feeling about a 6 out of 10 on this album. Well guys, hope you enjoyed that review. Thank you all so much for watching, and I will see you in the next one. Peace.